Good morning, everybody. Today I wanted to talk to you about the narcissists and how they are demon possessed. So I know they're demon possessed because I've experienced seeing faces on my ex. Once I started to realize what I was dealing with in narcissism, I remember in hindsight, I was thinking about some of the arguments that we had gotten into, and they were spiritual. A human can't argue like that and win battles like that. And I'm 49 years old. I've been around for a little while, and I study a lot of stuff. And so with that being said, I started to Google not just learning the psychological stuff of narcissism, but also understanding that this is not just coming from me, but tens and hundreds of thousands of people all across the earth that have dealt with the same thing. And I saw multiple faces on mine. And at some point in time, when I started to wake up to this, I had time stand still. And I had several faces that she turned into. And the last one melted off of her face. It was a whole big experience. And then time resumed and people were all around us. And I saw there was golden eyes. First, then the head would come down and the eyes would be right here. And then they would turn golden. Time stood still. The face would have the outer profile and it would turn black. The inner profile of it, inky black. And then the eyes bulged out, the lips overflowed, and they were going like huge, like volcano of botulism. Probably because they lie so much, but I don't know. And then what happened next was her face came back, and then it melted off like the Scream mask from the 90s. If you look at that mask, and that mask has a eerie history to it. They found that mask, and whoever made it and stuff, it's an entity. This is what I saw. It melted off of her face. Time stood still. It was during the daytime. We were out in public, and I was coming up on her. We had been broke up, and somebody else had spoke on their situation that was very close to this Densimusted one, if you don't believe me. But anyway, and then it turned into that, and that Scream mask melted off her face, and it flew, and it like a flag flying in the wind at like 100 miles an hour, and it went, and then all of a sudden, everybody came back, and time resumed. And she looked at me, and I looked at her, and I shook my head like that. I remember looking down at my phone, and I walked away, and it took me a couple days to really, truly process the whole thing. Truly, maybe even a week or two. It was crazy. And I also had seen the Duper's Delight smirk. There's a specific smirk to that. The cheeks go way up, and that assassin stare. I've seen black eyes in another narcissist. And then I started to be followed around for about a month. And I almost unmasked another gang stalker, a demonic gang stalker, because the eyes turned golden and the head tilted down, the eyes turned golden. That's what seems to happen before they would be unmasked. And then it happened to keep walking, and I was in a different position to where I couldn't continue to see that individual. And then from there on, I was everywhere I'd go. My friends would tell me that I was getting that assassin stalker stare at anywhere I went for about a month. And I don't know why that they would do that. That's why I always say that to the monitoring, it's demonic. It's not that they hire, if somebody's following you and stuff, there is times where maybe they could pay somebody to follow you around or something. But generally speaking, what happened to me, anywhere I went for about a month, I would see somebody in the gym, in the grocery store, in the restaurant, staring a hole straight through me. That assassin's dead stare. You guys know it. And it monitored me for like a month. It was several years ago. And I didn't know if it was going to continue forever. It was a time of the solar flares. And I bring that up because I've heard a lot of cases where people started to see these types of things. And it was always like during an eclipse or the solar flare time. And I don't know if that's because it brings the energy down and gives you the ability to reveal more. That's why maybe they want you to wear glasses during an eclipse and stay inside. I don't know. But I've heard several cases where people had seen these types of things during either an eclipse or a high solar flare period of time. And for me, it was that. It was a high This was like an enormous amount of solar flares at this time. It was not very common in this world system that we live in. So I think there's something to that. You know, they always talk about the moons and stuff, and they will do certain kinds of castings and stuff during moons and sex spells and all kinds of stuff I spoke on. Now, I'm not trying to tell you that witchcraft can hit you, and if you're covered, you're covered. But if you're not, like, really walking the faith like you should, most of us, it's really hard to do that. And, you know, so you got to be careful, because you don't, what they like to do is get your energy pulled down, you know, with a lot of things bombarding you, and get your anxiety and depression to pull you down and get you worried. If they can get you worried and fear, that's why God says, don't fear not, for I'm with you, because he's telling you that, see, the Bible's got a lot of stuff that's encoded in it. And that's why it says the secret counsel is held with the upright. Because if you understand the Lord, you understand some of these things, and you're keen to them, and you also have, if you don't have the faith to believe that the spirit realm is out there, then you'll never see the stuff, probably. That's what I truly believe that. Because faith is huge. Even though you can't feel it, and it's untouchable, but it's still tangible. It's still touchable in the spirit realm. You can almost touch it sometimes, certain things. And when you get certain understandings and stuff, and that's why words are huge, because they can make you feel that way too. And that's why when the narcissist comes to you, they come to light workers, y'all. It's period. A lot of times they come to light workers, and when they're not with light workers, they're with the darkness. Okay? And this is what happens is if they can get a light worker, then they will go in there and destroy them. To destroy them and to siphon that energy, they have to get you in a fear state, depression, anxiety state. And also, you know, people talk about that they become your God in a sense, because you're focused always on them, and you're a servant to them. You're subservient to them. You're accepting it. You're coming into covenant with it. And when you do that, that's why you're in the narcissist web. And the narcissist web, anybody attach you when they catch their karma, and they're camouflaging themselves with your good soul energy, and they're throwing their fuel on you, their sin soul energy. And when all that takes place, that's why you're catching the brunt of their karma. That's why a lot of y'all, and then you're also wondering why you're hollowed out when you leave them. You don't even know who you are anymore. You don't know who you are anymore because you're dealing with a demon. And that demon is siphoning your soul energy, your source, all that essence. They're siphoning it off of you on a daily basis when they're with you. That's why they have to stay close to you. They siphon all your fuel off. They act like you. They walk around your mannerisms, and they walk in your shoes, I said. And you're walking in the narcissist shoes. You're walking in their fantasy, and they're walking in your reality during that time. And that's why they can't stay with you long. They destroy you. And that's what the enemy wants to do. He wants to destroy you, take your fuel. A lot of that fuel is probably siphoned down to the abyss. Who the hell knows? But it's obvious that they got the power cut off. That whenever they fell, that God snatched the power grid out from under them. The lights went out in hell. Or there's no power in hell. The only power that they can get, God sucked all the power from them. That's why they are not creative. That's why they have to take it from us, or they got to exploit us to get us to create. That's why they will do things and on TV and movies, and they will put concepts out there, evil constructs and concepts, and we take and we run with them in humanity. And when we do that, we create things, and then they take what we created and exploit it for their own good, because that's what rules this world. I personally believe that the hierarchy of the Illuminati, the upper echelon, is fallen angels, and that they have to reincarnate into humanity over and over. And when it talks about in Ephesians 6:12, or that we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but powers and kingdoms and rulers in high places, they still are humanity, but they're cloaked like us, and they're maybe born into humanity over and over. And I don't believe in reincarnation for humanity, but it doesn't mean in the concept, in the context of if God placed that on as a curse on the fallen ones as part of until their damnation to reincarnate. Because fallen angels invisible out here. flying around. I don't know how much that is. I mean, but what we do know is that all of these presidents and council and all of these bankers and Fortune 500 companies, you got to be in beast mode to be in any of that, which means you have to be in a fight or flight type mode. You cannot have empathy, because if you have empathy, you will never succeed in those places. I often believe that most people in this world that are of the upper echelon are never going to be God's people. And God, I mean, it even talks in John, look it up, I think it's John 10 or somewhere around there, that, pastors should not be hired pastors. It says they call him a hireling, when the hireling is there and he basically, it means he's hired pastor. But when the wolves come, it says he runs away. I mean, where was Christ's church? He evangelized in the streets. It wasn't pretty. That was, and then his other church was he would meet in small groups. He would stay in people's homes at night and he would minister to one another. And it didn't cost him anything. God never talked about 10% for us. It doesn't say that in the New Testament. It doesn't say that. That was an Abrahamic covenant. He said to give God God's and to give Caesar his taxes, what's owed to him. Meaning, don't break the law, do what you're supposed to do unless it gets in the way of God. I'm not saying you shouldn't give, but I don't know that you should be giving to churches, because they ain't spending it right, and they're wolves, y'all. They're wolves. They're dirtying up the church. The church is going to be far and few between, and it's probably going to be people that are meeting in smaller churches, not bigger ones. But what I wanted to get at is they always say energy is the new currency, and that's true. I mean, especially for the fallen ones, that they have no identity. The fallen angels, demons, are the disembodied spirits of the giants of Genesis 6 from the copulation of fallen angels and human women. I spent a lot of years on this. I went to seminary school and I'm saved. I know this stuff, and I spent years on this. And anytime you'll get into any conspiracies of the world, they're true. They're not a lie. They may be hard to understand, but if you understand them, you're seeing the spiritual work in the physical realm, and that's why people laugh at it. But you will get the understanding of this. A lot of times people will even understand this and not be saved, so they will not get it. They'll think other things but when you can click it into the word, it's right. Satan runs the whole world. He has for a long, long time. It's just not going to look like the New World Order that you think it is. It's going to be, they rule out of chaos as their order. And so we're light and they're dark workers. So they have to come to us and they got to get complete control over us and start to siphon us. But to siphon that energy, they have to get somebody who's innocent and somebody who is good. And then they have to deceive you, continue to deceive you. And that's where that gets to the point to where they can get and they can tap that fuel out from under you. That's where they can crush you. You start to believe the deceptions. They can lie to you all day long, but if you don't, it's not deception if you don't believe the lie. If I tell you that I'm wearing a red shirt right now and I am currently wearing a black shirt, and if you're looking at me and I'm lying to you, then that's not deception. Deception is for you to believe I'm wearing a red shirt when I'm wearing a black one. That's deception. So there's lies and then there's deception. If you don't believe the deception, then you're okay. You're not falling trapped to it. But these guys are running on, like, they always talk about the frequency and stuff, and the frequency is they're running off like a Wi-Fi. The frequency is out here. They're linking up to the frequency out here as they come down to that level. And that's where the narcissist is a hollow soul. They're always looking out here. And then they became hollow. There's nothing in there. They cannot process any of their thoughts, their emotions, any of their past. They cannot learn from it. They have no common sense, no creativity, and no empathy. That tells you they're dealing with demons. And everything about this construct is of the Satan of the Bible. Satan masquerades as an angel of light. So do they. They put on a mask, and they look good doing it. And they deceive. And that's what they have to do to get your energy. And if they can't control you, then they got to control others out here. they got to control the thoughts of others, of how they think about you. But then when you cast it down and you pray against it and you put it down to the ground, what happens is all that fuel has to go somewhere. It's got to go back to the maker of it. So it's got to go back to the narcissist. And what happens is the narcissist starts, you're ruminating. Now when you reject it, the rumination will eventually fall off of you, and that karma and that rumination, that energy is going to go back to them next. Okay. And what it's going to do is going to cause a bubble around them. And the only thing that's going to be in that bubble are people with the same energy as them. And they're going to be stuck in that bubble while you progress and succeed. And they're going to have to watch you. And that's part of the bargain that they made when they went into covenant with these demons. They cannot be distracted. And what's funny is it's not funny, but what's interesting is everything in the Bible, if you look at it, the anatomical right is blessed and the anatomical left is cursed. And you'll find that in the world too. If you're left-handed, you're not cursed. If you're not saved, then you're cursed to some degree. But what I'm saying is their anatomical right brain is the side that's shut off, and that's the creativity side, that's the empathy side, and that is the common sense side. And it says in the book of Isaiah, I think it is, that there'll be a time coming in the last days where good will be called evil and evil will be called good. I want to make this real quick. But basically, God is perfect common sense. So if you were to replace it with, there'll be a day coming where perfect common sense will be called evil and perfect senselessness, Satan, will be called good. And that's what you see in the narcissist. They're perfect senselessness, and we're perfect. We're more along the lines of the common sense side. You see what I'm saying? When they are wearing your energy, they are walking in your fuel and in your world to some degree. And when they flip that energy with you because you reacted and you accepted it because you went in covenant with them, you became close to them. You become that mirror image and you accept it. You become part of their web until you get out of their web by disconnecting from them. When that karma hits the narcissist web, they want a bunch of people in that web. So it goes, when it hits them, it goes boof. And they're camouflaged wearing your fuel. Your aura. This is a spiritual thing, y'all. It's spiritual warfare. And that's all I got for you today. If you can give me a like, subscription, and a thumbs up, I can do a part 2 on this if you like. Peace.